Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Instagram, on Facebook, on Pinterest, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. Tonight I'm going to be sharing some of my lesson ideas for younger grades. Specifically, I'm going to share exactly what I'm doing this week for first grade. I'm also going to share a book that I really love for kindergarten. One that I shared a little bit about last year, but has been such an overwhelming success in my classroom that I just wanted to make sure I brought it up and shared a little bit more about that tonight. So that's the plan, to get into those primary grade lessons in just a second. If you hear me talk about any resources, books, lessons, other things that are mentioned in the video, I have a whole page on my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, dedicated to all the links and things I talk about. Just go to the video tab or click the link at the bottom of the wherever you're watching or listening to this video / podcast. There's also a Facebook group, Every Moment Matters Music Education Facebook group. We'd love if you'd join us and come along and ask questions and learn things together and share resources, and it's a great place to come together. So come find us on Facebook. Okay, so a couple quick things. I was in Pittsburgh this last week doing a workshop on learning centers and small groups. It was really great. So nice to see people who sometimes I just see randomly their username popping up on Facebook or Instagram. So it's so nice to actually meet people in person. Because I don't know if you know this, but on these Musical Mondays nights and when I do these videos, it's just me sitting talking to my computer. So it's nice, or my phone. It's nice to know people out there like, hey, I watched that video or I listened to the podcast. It was cool. I like that song or whatever. So it's so great to meet people in person, see people in person. I'm doing another workshop with the Minnesota ORF chapter, which is in Minneapolis, and that's on October 15th. That's all about improvisation and steps you can take and scaffolding and all sorts of things you can do. So I hope you'll look that up. There's a link to that on my blog, or you can find it on Facebook too. That's the Minnesota ORF chapter on October 15th. So just a little bit less than a month away. Oh, and one more thing. This last weekend, so in this video, you're going to see me use puppets. I use puppets so often. There's one right here in my office that just sort of hangs out just in case I need it on the shelf. Anyway, I use puppets so much, and a lot of times people are like, but how do you use them? And can you, people will send me a thing like, hey, where can I find more information about puppets? And I'm like, well, I sort of talk about them all the time in my Musical Mondays videos and all sorts of places. But I just released a brand new course on my blog, courses.makemomentsmatter.org, and it's all about puppets and how I use them and the ways that I use them. And tonight you're going to see a little bit of the puppet action, but I hope that you, if you're interested, the puppet course, it is about puppets and how you can use them, but it's also just a ton of different lessons. It's a bunch of lessons. I use puppets to teach, but you don't have to use those puppets. You don't have to use them exactly how I use them. You can take the lesson ideas and just transfer it to your classroom and use a picture or use clip art or use whatever. You'll see that tonight. I'll talk a little bit about that. But anyway, that course is out there if you're interested. Courses.makemomentsmatter.org. You can find that one about puppets. It's called Puppet Magic. It's exciting. Just came out. Okay, so let me share about this book that I use in kindergarten. We just finished talking about our 4 voices, which I've shared about before on how you do that, or how I do that, the speaking voice, whisper voice, shouting voice, and speaking, whisper, shouting, singing. And it's been great. It's been so much fun. We've applied them. We've used them. We've done all sorts of things. Today we learned about shouting voice. We actually learned it from my bear, Grizzly the Bear, in kindergarten. But I'm not going to get into the full lesson because that's not really my focus for tonight. But I end by sharing this book with students, and it's called Leave Me Alone by Vera Brosgol. And I shared a bit about this last year, but I just want to share just a few pages today because I think it's such a fun book. So yeah, Leave Me Alone by Vera Brosgol. Once there was an old woman. She lived in a small village in a small house with a very big family. And I love showing kids this picture and how many people are shoved into this house. And you can sort of see her face. She's I mean, she probably likes her family. I don't know. She's in that picture, she's not into it. Winter was coming. Not in the Game of Thrones way. Winter was coming. That meant she had some very important knitting to do, but it wasn't getting done. here's why, right? Because, like, look at all the kids who are, like, getting in the way. Her grandchildren were very curious about her knitting. Were you supposed to hit the ball with a stick? Could you eat it? Could you make your brother eat it? So I love this picture of the little tiny toddler where the sister's like trying to put yarn in his mouth. It's ridiculous. Why did the ball get smaller and smaller as you chased it? The old woman was at the end of her rope. Or yarn, I guess, in this case. So she made her bed as neatly as she could. She swept the floorboards until they more or less shone. She drank some tea from her samovar. She packed up her things in a big sack, and as she left, she shouted back, "Leave me alone!" And I love turning the page and shouting this because the kids are all startled and they all think it's hilarious. And then I say, some of these words before, it's maybe a little hard from where you're sitting to see them, but can you absolutely see these words? Yeah, you can absolutely see these words. And it's so, their words are so big because why? Because she shouted them. Exactly. The words are so big. If they show up again, this big, that means she's doing what? She's shouting. Okay. The old woman walked through the deep, dark forest. She made a fire so that she could see what she was doing. Then she sat down and began to knit. And at this point I'm like, and knitting is when you take these little needles and yarn and you sort of put them together. And you can make like, a sweater, a scarf, a blanket, socks. I don't know what she's making. The bear family was very curious about the light from her fire and about what she might taste like. "Leave me alone!" the old woman shouted. But they didn't listen because bears don't speak English. So she picked up her sack and left. So this happens over and over. But at this point, I've made a big stink about how if the words are that big, she's shouting, and also what she's saying, which is "leave me alone." So now I'm like, what? Since the words are so big, maybe could you say them with me? Let me try to turn this page again. So I go back, I reread. The bear family is very curious about the light from her fire, about what she may taste like, and then I flip the page. So anytime this shows up, they know they are allowed to shout out those words with me, because it's part of the story. So anyway, she goes up onto the mountain, and the mountain goats start eating her yarn. Not fun. Obviously, she has to shout, "Leave me alone." They don't, so she goes up the mountain, climbs up the mountain, off the mountain, onto the moon. So, like, at this point, we're like, maybe this could have been true, but now at this point, we know we have crossed into the realm of fiction because this is, like, now she's on the moon. When she's on the moon, it's very quiet and great, except the little green moon men find her, and they start using their little handheld scanners, tricorders, let's be honest, to scan her, and so she yells again, "Leave me alone," and then she goes into through a wormhole into the void. In the void, she gets all of her knitting done, but she's all alone. She goes back home. Well, she cleans up first. She goes back home, and her grandchildren rush and welcome her back. And what has she been knitting? She's been knitting sweaters for them because it's winter and they're going to be cold. Anyway, this is it's a hilarious book. It's so much fun. Predictive text, repetition. The kids know anytime her words show up really big that they're allowed to shout along with the book, which they think is amazing. They super, super enjoy this book, and it does reinforce shouting voice, and it's just a lot of fun. So kids really like it. It's total win. Leave Me Alone by Vera Brosgol, and that last name is spelled Brosgol. I hope I'm saying it right. I put a link to that on the links page on my blog, but also if you find this book, you can find it maybe in your local library. It's not new. I'll see if I can find the year it was published. It is Roaring Brook Press, published in, I don't know, a year. 2016. So it's been out a while. You might be able to find it used. I did, and you can maybe find it on at your library. I also put a link to it on Amazon, which you can absolutely do if you want. But check out some of the local bookstores and things first, because Amazon doesn't need our money. Local bookstores do. Amazon's doing just fine. Anyway, but it's linked there on Amazon if you want to go snag the ISBN and author and all that sort of information. Leave Me Alone. Great book. Okay, so that's in kindergarten. I know said I was going to talk about first grade, but I just wanted to share that book because it is such an amazing favorite of kindergarten. They love it because they get a shout. They think it's so great, and it is, and it's fun. It gets to reinforce a lot of things. It's also reading skills because they're looking for those special pull-out words, and they know what those words mean. So anytime that an author does something like that, it's meant for kids to interact with it, and it's done really well in this book. Anyway, okay, so first grade, when first grade comes in, they get to meet my friend Bessie, and Bessie is actually Farmer Brown's cow, but she's not feeling good. There's something wrong with her. Bessie, you want to tell us what's wrong? Oh no, Bessie, it seems like you're not doing good. Oh, you're nodding your head. That means yes. Okay, so good. But I don't speak cow. I only speak English and a little bit of Spanish, I guess. But anyway, so you were saying you're not feeling good. Moo, right? And something happened today, probably. Moo, 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 moo. Oh yeah, sounds like you twisted your ankle. Moo, 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 moo. Mm-mm. Oh, okay. So what happened? Moo, 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 moo. Oh no, sounds like your back's hurting you. Moo, 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 moo. Moo, 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 moo. Oh no. Do you maybe have a headache? Moo! So basically back and forth with the puppet, I'm like, she's pantomiming, speaking moo, speaking cow, and she's pantomiming she ate something, now she's throwing up. Kids think that this is delightful. They love seeing the interaction between me and the cow because they can tell from what the cow is giving them that she ate something and now her stomach hurts, right? Like kids are like, sure, we get it. But me being, like pulling the card of like, I don't get it. Maybe she twisted her ankle. They think that's hilarious. So anyway, this goes back and forth 3 or 4 more times. I don't know. And then I go, she's like, bleh, and I'm like, oh no, you got an earache. And she's like, moo, and she shakes her head and basically her whole body, no. So then I get to sing my song. Farmer Brown had a cow, had a cow, had a cow. She got sick, we don't know how. All she said was moo. Yeah, because she's not really telling us what's wrong. She's doing a really bad job communicating. You're doing a bad job communicating. The puppet's looking at me like, come on. Like she's communicating well, but she's really not. She's only speaking in cow. Anyway, so we don't really know what it was that did it. Moo, 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 moo. Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, your tail's hurting you. So anyway, the kids really like this. And so I go through the song again. Farmer Brown had a cow, had a cow, had a cow. She got sick, we don't know how. All she said was moo. And then usually what you give cows if they're not feeling well is you give them some time, maybe some water, and some good hay. You don't want to give them bad hay or moldy hay. You give them some good hay, some time, some water. That usually helps. And that's why the next part of my song comes. Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that will make it go away? Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that's all for today? Moo. Great. But actually, Bessie had a lot of friends in the barnyard who wanted to bring her stuff to make her feel better. Yeah. So her friend, the pig, her pig brought chocolate cake to see if that would help her headache. Moo. All she said was moo. Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that would make it go away? Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that's all for today? Moo. Right. Now, we go through with it, another animal. Maybe it's like her friend, the sheep, brought scrambled eggs to see if that would help her legs. All she said was moo. So we go through 3 or 4 more times. I've not really asked the kids to sing anything. I'm just basically singing the story for them. And I think that's something that when I was a younger teacher, I would never have done. I would have always insisted that kids need to have like some sort of participation. They need to be singing. They need to be doing whatever. But I've changed my tune over the years, literally, I suppose. And I now, I see a big value in kids hearing of an example, or not even, or maybe being invited to sing, but not being asked to do it right away. Maybe they just, instead of being like, here's your thing, here's several examples, hear it before I ask you to sing. And really, the first thing I would ask them to sing is probably the moo, like a vocal glide, something in there. But I like letting kids listen to the singing, and I like them listening to a story and start to listen for like different pieces that they can pull apart. So like, where's the pattern? What's happening? Where's the story going? Things like that. And so one of the things that I have them look for is patterns. And so one of the first things that I really ask them is, is there any sort of connection between what's being like, okay, the first one, chocolate cake to help the headache, scrambled eggs to help her legs. And I go through 3 or 4 more things until they figure out that like the words are rhyming, which by the way, you can like search this song on YouTube or on Google or YouTube or whatever. You can find a lot of different verses. There are tons of different verses. But basically, if you just go through different parts of the cow's body that like rhyme with foods. And I love it when the verses are like, some ham. And I'm like, ooh, but that's a barnyard animal. Do I want to bring the cow some ham? I don't know. Like ham and eggs is what the first one was. I was like, it's bad enough that there are eggs involved at all, but I got to find something that rhymes with legs. Anyway, so you go through and try and find different foods you can give the cow that rhyme with different body parts, hoping, and then eventually asking the kids, do you hear the connecting, what's happening? And then they can figure out there's something rhyming. And then we can maybe come up with different verses, so then after 3 or 4 examples that I give, I ask them to find the connection. Yes, we find the connection that like there's a connection between the rhyming of a food and a body part. So what could be wrong on the cow? I don't know, her eye, and we could bring pumpkin pie, right? So we could then sing that, and then kids are like, yes, and they really like to sing along then because they know the connection. Her head hurts. What rhymes with head? Is there a food that rhymes with head? Bread. Yes. Okay, we're gonna bring some bread to help her head. Oh, and we need a barnyard animal who will do that. Who would do that? Horse. Her friend the horse brought some bread to see if that would help her head. But that's actually not the problem. Her head is not the problem. All she said was moo. And then, I don't know. Her tail. You got to get creative. Milk in a pail. I don't know. You got to come up with some things. Anyway, the point is I want them to hear, and I want them to find connections in the song, and maybe do the vocal glide if they're going to do anything. If they're also going to do anything else, it would probably be the chorus. Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that would make it go away? Hey, 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 wouldn't you say that's all for today? And another thing I really want them to do is I want them to start thinking about what else could we bring to the cow. So what else could be hurting on the cow, and what is a rhyming food word we could bring to the cow to make it feel better. So, I don't know, her back. Eggs in a pack, or I don't know, something, you got to sort of get creative, but things that would make her feel better. Now, the reason I'm doing this poem is there are a lot of cool things you can listen for, and kids really like it. They think it's a fun story. But also, I'm planning on doing a first grade program in the spring that is farm related, and so I'm trying to scatter these farm songs in the first semester so that I'm not trying to teach like 8 songs at once. I'm not trying to teach all these different songs at once in the spring. I can just be like, hey, oh my gosh, we're doing this concert at the farm. We know some farm songs. What do we know? We know, and I think it's really funny when I've done that in the past. Like last year, I was like, we know some songs from the ocean. What songs do we know? And kids would like say all the ones that I thought, and then they'll mention another one that we had done maybe a previous year or something that they remembered. And I was like, oh yeah, we did do that. So it's fun to start peppering these songs in now. Use them now to teach some of your curricular goals for this semester, and then they're ready to pull back out in the spring semester when you're going to do a concert. Anyway, it's a super fun song. Also, I love that Julie on Facebook is like totally beating me with amazing things, because what can you do to help her tail? Some kale. Although, Julie, I don't know if to help her back to give her a Big Mac. That feels a little weird to give a cow a Big Mac. But you know what? In your classroom, you do what you want. Anyway, Could you do this song without the puppet? Yes, you could do it. Sometimes when I don't have a puppet or, a stuffed animal substitutes really well, right? If you have a stuffed animal cow, that's great. If you want, there are times where if I don't have a puppet or a stuffed animal or something, I'll use clip art up on the board and we'll sing to that. I mean, there are all different ways you can get around if you don't have the puppet. This puppet is great. I love it. It is currently out of stock in a lot of places. I've looked. The two puppets I'm using tonight, the Grizzly Bear and the cow, I looked. They're out of stock on Amazon. They're out of stock on West Music. They're out of stock on Sweet Pipes. They're out of stock. All these different places, Barnes & Noble, all the places that I generally look when I'm looking for puppets. I also looked on the Folk Madness website. They're saying like out of stock, will be back in stock in November. I'm sure they're having shipping issues like everybody else. But anyway, any cow puppets you want, they're cool ones. But you can also use a stuffed animal. You can also use just clip art if you want to have some sort of story, just sort of go back and forth. But the puppet makes it so easy to have that interaction back and forth. Anyway, so we start with that song and then we transition. We learn about Grizzly Bear. And then a couple weeks ago, we done a song, Hop Old Squirrel, where the squirrel talks about storing up food and finding food and all those sorts of things. And we talk about how Grizzly Bear does that too, or not just a Grizzly Bear, all bears. The bears do that too, but they store them up a different way. That's right, we store up food in a different way. We store it inside of us. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, instead of putting it like in a refrigerator or a cabinet or hiding it like that silly squirrel does, I eat the food. Yeah, but like, then the food is gone. Yeah, except that I store it up. And we talk about how the bear stores up food and then goes to sleep and hibernates. And, how long do you sleep? Long time. How long? Long time. Like a day? Longer. Like 2 days? Longer than that. Like, I don't know, 4 days? Much longer. Oh, gosh, like a week? Oh, longer than that. Oh, wow, 2 weeks? Longer. A month? Longer than that. And then once I get to more than a month, then I'm like, I don't actually know how many months the bear sleeps. So I'm like, a season until spring comes. Anyway, and we talk about how if Grizzly is sleeping, if Grizzly's sleeping, that probably he would not like to be woken up. Just like, I say to the kids, like, just like if you're having a really nice nap and you're having a great time, would you want to get woken up? And they're like, no. They would want to sleep. And some kids are like, I want to get it. Yeah, but okay, fine. Then we talk about Grizzly, and then we sing this song. Or I teach him this song. Grizzly Bear, oh Grizzly Bear, was sleeping in a cave. Please be very quiet, very, very quiet. If you wake him, if you shake him, he'll get very mad. And then Grizzly wakes up and is mad. And it startles other kids. And I love taking that moment to say, like, oh my goodness, did something just happen? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And some were like, we were scared. And I was like, were you scared or were you startled? Were you surprised or were you scared? Because they're different things, right? And I take a moment to talk about that because a lot of times in music for different things, I don't know, surprise symphony, dynamics, contrast stories, all sorts of things, we pull things out and sort of like pull the carpet out from under kids. And I want to distinguish now that there's a difference between scared and surprised. Just like we talk early on in kindergarten about how like, should you get upset about not getting a full turn? No. Oh, well, maybe we'll do it next time. I'm starting to like preset, like, do you need to freak out about this? Do you need to flip out about this? Do you need to be super emotional about this? No, we're just having fun. So were you scared? Scared means that you were worried or fearful or have you're worried something bad is going to happen maybe. I don't know. But surprise just means like, whoa, you did not see that coming, but you're okay. And we talk a little bit about that maybe 30 seconds. Just again, because I want to, there are going to be times where they are going to be startled by music or visuals or a video or something, and I want to have that talk. So anyway, we bring that up, and then I teach them the song piece by piece. The first time I teach it, though, I teach it phrase by phrase, and I don't shout. And I say that. I was like, I'm not going to shout this first time. I want you to know I'm not going to shout it. You know it's coming, but I'm not going to do it this time. So, please be very quiet, very, very quiet. They echo. If you wake him, if you shake him, if you wake him, he'll get very mad. He'll get very mad. And then we put it together a little bit longer. And then once we have the whole song ready, he'll get very mad. We've done it all through once. Okay, let's change the mad back to the shout. Because are you ready for it? Yeah, we're ready for it. Okay, great. So we change it back to the shout, and then they just like They love it. And of course, Grizzly has to be there along the way. Of course I do. And you have to shout and stuff like that. I help the kids out. Yes, you're very good at that. Anyway, Grizzly's also on back order I found online. So if you have any other bear, there's some really cool other bears, or a stuffy or something, you could do that. It would be hilarious if you try to do this like story with like a teddy bear. I don't know how to really translate, but it's a fun story. Now the game is a circle game, and I say, okay, they all make a circle, standing up, holding hands. I go stand in the middle, and I say, I'm Grizzly, and at the end, let's see what happens. And I wake up and I go, I'm very mad, and I say, okay, now open up all your arms, and all their arms, you're holding hands, all their arms go up, and I say, I'm going to choose one of your arms as a doorway to go through. So I go underneath one little archway and I say, great, only this doorway can stay open. All others need to close. And then I run around, around the whole circle and back through that door. And so they see me come out one archway, go all the way around, come back through that archway. And they're like, oh, that's fun. We do that again. We sing the song. I, as Grizzly, am frustrated and angry, and I go out a different archway. All of the archways close. I go all the way around, and then I go back through. So I'm presetting this like, what does Grizzly do, before I add the chase element of the game. Because trying to add all that at once is a lot for first grade. So they know they're in a circle. At the end of the song, on the word mad, they raise up their hands. One archway will stay open, whichever one Grizzly chooses to go through. And then Grizzly's going to run around and be crazy and then go back through the archway. Well, I say, a few weeks ago we read a book called Polar Bear, What Do You Hear? And in that book, where are they? Are they out in the wild? No. And it's a book about all these animals, and what do they hear? They hear another animal, they hear another animal. I shared about this last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And in that book, they're in a zoo. I say, well, guess what? The zookeeper needs a grizzly bear. And I know exactly the one that I want. And so I switch out the jobs where I give the grizzly bear role to a kid. And then I say, I'm the grizzly bear. And when you come out, I'm going to try and get you. So be ready. And so then they know, like, when they come out through an archway, I even say, like, if I'm standing right here by this archway, should you come out the archway right in front of me? And they're like, no, I don't want to get caught. You're right. Okay, you should go on one far away from me. And so then they do that. And then they find out that, like, the zookeeper chases the bear, and the bear still have to go all the way around and back through that original door. It's just it's a fun game. We've done things like this in kindergarten. It's just another version of it, but it also uses our singing voice. It also uses our shouting voice. It also is a super fun song and ties into Science Connections because they're talking about bears and hibernation, and there's just a lot that goes on in the song. So it's a super fun one. And one that we only get to do like maybe 3 kids through the rotation today. And I say, wow, oh my gosh. Like when we're done, we go back to our dot spots about ready to leave. And I say, wow, that was a fun game. Do you think we're only going to play it today? And they're like, no, I hope we're going to play it again. I'm like, you're right. And so if you didn't get to go today, maybe next time. That's why we always say, if you didn't get to go today, or if you didn't get your favorite color today, or you didn't get chosen for your answer today, we always say, oh, well, maybe next time, because you're going to get another shot. You're going to come to music again, and for sure we're going to play this game again. So, like, if you didn't get to go today, don't worry. Fun stuff's going to happen another day. And so that's another thing that I'm trying to preset at the beginning of the year, especially for kinder and first, is these expectations of you're safe and having fun in the music room, you're going to get a turn. If you don't get one today, maybe next time. Trying to set up these things like, do you need to get overwhelmed by, oh, the apple falls on your head in this game. Oh, no. Do I have to cry and be sad forever? No, it's just a silly game. Oh, my goodness. So we're just going to move on. It's just resetting those expectations for the year. So it's a super fun game. Both of these are really fun. Could you do it without the puppets? Absolutely. Could you do it with the puppets? Yes. So right now, like I said, I went and looked. A bunch of them are out online, but you can always look on Facebook groups. The music teacher buy, sell, trade groups are really great for if people have retired or are thinking about retiring or just have puppets they don't want anymore. It's fun to find puppets there that you can get from another music teacher. But like I said, I just did a course all about puppets, courses.makemomentsmatter.org. If you're interested, you're like, I have puppets, I don't know how to use them, or I want to use them better. You can go to that course, and it's brand new. It just came out this last weekend. I share some of my favorite secrets and also my favorite lessons. So if you're like, I have all these puppets, I don't have lessons for them, or I don't know what to do, that it gives you some ideas. And also, like, if you don't have those puppets, you can find ways to adapt. Because, like, could you do Farmer Brown had a cow, but if you don't have a cow, could you, like, do it, like, if you had a sheep, could the sheep tell the story? Sure. Like you could say, or if Grizzly Bear was sleeping in a cave, could you find another forest animal to tell the story about Grizzly being so angry? Sure, Ricky the raccoon, or Snowy the owl, or somebody else who lives in the mountains could be like, oh my gosh, have you heard about Grizzly? And then maybe you put a picture of Grizzly up on the board and be like, let me just tell you what happens. When he's hibernating, you don't want to mess with him. You don't have to have these exact puppets. You can make adaptations like that, but it's fun to have the puppets too. Okay, I hope this gives you some ideas for this week. I'm going to be back midweek. I have plans to share from my classroom either Wednesday or Thursday after school. But those videos, I can't find a way to share them live on both Facebook and Instagram. So I'm just doing Facebook for now. I'm reposting them to YouTube and the podcast. Instagram, I'm sorry, I can't find a way to do them 2 at a time at school. But anyway, I'm going to be sharing live later this week. Come on back for more. And if not, I'll see you next week on Monday night. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.